Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me are Dr. Anahy Fonseca and Jussara Korngold. If this is your first time watching this podcast-like program, please note that our program, the Psychology and Spirituality Weekly Talks, are based on the works by Joanna DeAngelis, and we're here in this very informal discussion to offer a safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens and bring in insights, actionable tips, and real world advice to help all of us lead a better life. In today's episode, we'll continue our discussion on dreams. We had quite a lot of fun last time when we were together, but today we're going to perhaps bring the discussion further onto the definitions, the notions of what symbols and symbolisms is, and maybe we will have time to do a bit of discussion on dream interpretation. But before we start, I would like to recognize the sponsoring organizations, AMI Brazil, TV Mansão do Caminho, the International Spiritist Council, and the United States Spiritist Federation. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you want to know more about this program and many others, please check us out at www.spiritist.us. And don't forget to write down your questions, thoughts, feedback, and we are eager to read them. And if we have time, we will address them today. Otherwise, we'll address them in the near future. Anahy, Jussara, I hope you're doing well. And I would like to start today with Anahy because Anahy, you introduced Freud's and Jung's approach to dream, right? And dream interpretation. And then you came in later and you talked about spiritism, a very a notion of what is dreams in relationship to that immortal soul, that multiple incarnation or corporeal existences that belong to our experience as such. But let's talk a little bit about what symbolism is. Anahy, can you take a stab at talking to us about the definition of symbols and how we can use symbolism in this idea of dream interpretation?
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again with you all. Yes, and so we were talking about the language of the soul, the psyche, the way that our higher self, our actually, as Joanna De Angelis says, our spirit, right, talks to the ego that is our consciousness here in this personality. And the only way, so Jussara was talking also about different lives, different past lives, and all the learning, and that the way we were talking about Plato's friend, right? Jussara? And what I didn't learn at that point, then maybe now it's the way many incarnations later I have the exact conditions, let's say, to experience again, to make a whole of everything that I have experienced, felt, or thought in some learning that my spirit is trying to achieve, let's say. So the symbols, the symbolic language is the language of the unconscious. And Jussara in the previous episode said very well that remind us all that Joanna De Angelis says that the life of the spirit happens in the unconscious, right, Jussara? Because of course the ego, the poor ego, is a much smaller consciousness, let's say, because it's trying to make sense and to live this life and to adapt to the outside world and the inner world also. So the higher self, the self, capital S, Jung self, and as Joanna says, our spirit is trying to, of course, send message to the ego, right? So to help this development, to help this learning that the psyche, our soul, is trying to achieve in this rank, in this incarnation. So I will cite Jung. Jung says that the symbols then would be the best possible representation of something that can never be known fully. And he was then dedicated to creating in his patients the ability to reflect and live life on a symbolic rather than a simply literal
Mm-hmm.
level. But why? Then let's a little bit more of Jung. So Jung says we call a symbol a concept, a figure, or a name that can be known to us in itself, but whose content, use, or usefulness are specific or strange, indicating a hidden, obscure, and unknown meaning. This is Jung's terms. But
Mm-hmm.
why hidden, obscure, or unknown meaning? Because it's in the unconscious and our poor egos, our consciousness, okay, the ego as the center of consciousness is trying to make sense of things. But usually, let's say, figuratively, the ego is looking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
He's not capable of an expanded to look in a way that it's a broader way, expand the way that he's looking, look to the past, look to the, to pay attention to intuitions, to even dreams. Our dreams, as we said in the previous episode, they flow, let's say, the unconscious, and they slip through our fingers like sand, right? So it's very important to understand that the symbol is trying uh, to send us a message, but so the symbol has different meanings that deepen, let's say, that go deeper in the unconscious. Why is that? Because our higher self, all this knowledge, all this purpose, all this need to evolve is in our higher self, and is trying to connect to and send message to the ego. So Jung always says a concept or a figure is symbolic when it means more than it indicates or expresses. They have an all encompassing, unconscious aspect that is never exhausted or precisely defined because of our poor egos, right? He can understand partially. So, even Jung, for instance, he would stay with the images of his dreams for years, and he would really discover new meanings as life went on. And he remembered, oh, but then I had that dream. Now it makes sense because the ego is living this experience, is connecting dots, let's say, right? So Jung says, as there are many things that are beyond human comprehension, we often use consciously or unconsciously symbolic concepts and figures when dealing with them, with this all this stuff that it's that the ego can't sometimes make sense, right? So we not only use symbols, Jung says, but we also spontaneously produce them in our dreams. Of course, because of our higher selves, our spirits are producing symbols so that can send message through to the ego, to our egos. I will make a quick, I'll tell you a very quick dream of a young woman so that it would make it simple to people to understand, simpler to people to understand. So it's a young woman from a medical field, okay, that dreams of a Nazi
Mm-hmm.
chasing her and whom she ends up killing by throwing him into a ditch. Of course, this is the image. It's a
Mm-hmm.
summary of the dream. So this young woman, she has many working demands and a very busy schedule. She's a very modern woman, right? With which she doesn't seem to be able to cope these days because she has had a hard time saying no to invitations for lectures and such. Okay, so the rigid and aggressive aspect of her personality, which is unconscious, of course, it's represented where in the Nazi, okay, in the symbol of the Nazi. So it's a metaphor that her higher self, her unconscious, is bringing forth to the ego, to consciousness, to wake up, look here, inside here, there is this character, this aspect of your personality that is chasing you, let's say, right? So we can interpret as a rigid and aggressive aspect of her personality, which is unconscious, and it's represented by the Nazi, and her ego tries to run from it in the first moments of the dream, and eventually tries or achieve the killing of it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but let's wonder together, by throwing it in on a ditch. Okay, this aspect, killing something or someone that bothers me, that I feel like an enemy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's an archetype, uh, also image, because as human beings we are always, oh, this is my enemy, so I have to kill, I have to get rid of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So in all the cultures and all our history, we are still, and we have had, we were talking about our best friend Jesus, that 2000 years ago from there on, and previously, but have been as many other masters. But of course, Jesus was the one teaching us about unconditional love. Love thy enemy, right? As yourself. Love
Mm-hmm.
all of us must love one another. So, but when I feel like an enemy, I want to, and that's my aggressive part answer, is to get rid of it. And we unfortunately are still doing it these days, in different cultures, in different people all around the world, because we still haven't yet learning. We are in the process of learning because we have had many, many less wars, for instance, than in the past. But we still, as human beings, haven't learned yet that we are not supposed to do that, that we're supposed to love our enemies. So I was just giving an example. It's also an archetypal issue, okay? In all of us, human beings, learn to love our enemies. But here it's in an individual. So the Nazi, it's all, of course, an aggressive, represents an aggressive and rigid part of her personality that is chasing the ego, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that the ego at some point decides to get rid of and throws into a ditch. So, this action of killing the enemy, throwing the Nazi on a ditch, may represent a difficulty to integrate. Marcia talked about the shadow last
Mm-hmm.
episode also. So, to integrate this part of her personality by throwing it back to the unconscious, because the ditch is, it's dark, it's down, so it's a classical metaphor of something very unconscious. And the Nancy was chasing her, okay? And the dream, all aspects, all symbols of the dream
Mm.
relate to the person that is dreaming. So she was not talking with the Nazi. He is bad, he's aggressive, he wants to kill her. And she never stopped to talk to the guy, let's say, to this symbolic image. So it could be a warning, all this dream could be a warning. Of course, who is producing? The higher self, the soul,
Yeah.
the spirit, as Joanna Jansen says. It could be a warning about how she deals with this aspect of her personality. And from, of course, from her higher self to the ego consciousness. So it's complex, but how are we going to know killing that part? It's okay. It's a way that the ego is trying to get rid of this all this aggression, as Freud says, is repressing and discharging, because it's a conflict between the ego and this part of her personality. So is discharging this repressed issue, or we could think that it's a warning, let's say, of don't go that way. Talk to this guy,
Hmm.
make peace, try to integrate, try to, because we all need some aggressive parts, right? If we don't have a part that is aggressive, not in projecting this onto other people, but just to be able to do something that like say a work that I don't want to do a lot very much today, but I need I need to get out of bed, I need to take care of myself, and we need a little aggression, let's say aggressive part of us, to wake up and make us do, oh, but I want to stay in bed. No, go there, wake up, brush your teeth, comb
Yeah.
your head, go ahead. So we need that part, but this part has to be in peace with other parts of myself. Cannot be a conflict. And it's the metaphor, it's of course of a Nazi. So we all know that it was a part in our very sad in our history of a lot of aggression and a lot of feeling of the others as enemy and trying to kill and all of this stuff and making war. So the metaphor is very strong because the ego is feeling that part, as a very is very afraid of that part.
Hmm.
Okay, now I leave it to you guys.
So do you want to go? Because I could say my own interpretation of this very telling dream. I love it. Right. On one hand, this somebody really pliant and aggressive. There's an aggression underneath because an accomplished person who's doing things, presentation, working, very busy, and it requires that, right? But at the same time, she sees in herself through the dream of the Nazi. And to me, this is my own interpretation, the Nazi, yes, hated a really difficult uh, historical point in all of our lives, akin to the Crusades, the Inquisition, etc. Right? This very dark symbolism, but at the same time, I interpret as completely submissive. Those Nazi soldiers were submissive to a higher order, Hitler and all, right? The concept of purity and saving the Aryan race, the Germans, and this blind disciplined approach to executing those orders. And so, is this the enemy? And how do I, what does it say? Do I want to take away this blind and very submissive view through aggressive behavior, or do I continue to be very open and submissive to not so orderly? This is my interpretation. I am not the psychoanalyst here, but I'd love to hear Jussara talking a little bit about her take on this not only this dream, right, Jusara, but perhaps if you can talk to the audience here a little bit about how does spiritism speak to to different aspects of um, uh, sonambulism or trance or mediumistic trance, and how do they come to us from that, bringing to the surface what is hidden from us, perhaps a lot on you, Jussara. Feel free to explain as you speak.
Okay, hello everyone. Hi, Anahy, Marcia. Uh, well, taking the example that Anahy just gave, let us refer to here to a passage from one of the books of Joana de Angelis, The Moral Laws of Life, where she says that the world of dreams will tell us about deep psychological processes and
Mhm.
spiritual experiences symbolize it in a mixture of contents. So here we see the whole situation. But by the way, this person is not me, okay? Although I sympathize it so much with what she was saying, being overwhelmed with so many things and work and jobs and not saying no. I said, "Oh, it could be me," but so let's clarify that, okay? It's not me yet. Uh, so here, Joanna De Angelis said, will say, what is it, the psychological process that is all behind that? That's one thing
Mhm.
that we have to think about it. And referring to our last episode as well, when Dr. Anahy talked about, the symbols that, the same symbol may have a different interpretation you know for people, right? And and also, Marcia, yeah, I was remembering about your example when your husband visiting in Recife in Brazil and the mango and etc. And I think when Marcia dreams about mango, it's not what Jussara is going to dream about mango. It's not the mango, but it's going to
Mhm.
be for you, your hometown, and all the emotional content that is
Exactly.
that,
Mhm.
right? So mango for you. It's going to be something. I mean, I love mango, but it's going to be odd. It's not the same thing. So here, even when we talk about the Nazi, what is the representation of the Nazi? I mean, one of the representation that we could say it's a strict persecutor,
Yes.
and there is no negotiating.
Very good
Not
point.
negotiating with this strict persecutor. So the best thing that I can do is just get myself rid of it, right?
Mhm.
Put the dust under the rug and forget about it. But
Mhm.
it's there. Like Anahi said, sooner or later we will have to deal with that. The reason why this person made this or translated, this overwhelming into the figure of a Nazi, then is a particular thing. For us, it could be like a monster, or it could be a strict parent. It could, or a teacher in school.
Mhm.
What Joanna De Angelis keeps on telling in this same message, she says that we have to be very careful not to interpret psychological symbols as concrete experiences in the world of the spirit. So since we were talking about when I dream, my spirit kind liberates, not detached completely, but liberates from my physical body, and then I will have, let's say, lead a double life. I'm a double agent,
Uh,
one in the realm of the living and the other one in the realm of the real living people or spirits, right? So I'll have this double life, which sometimes, when I am that is, the expertise in this field, it's really a double life, right? That we will see people that are very shy and behave and this in the in the awakening state, and then when they talk about their dreams, it's okay. So this situation here, it doesn't mean then we are going to take it literally that when she was sleeping, there was a Nazi spirit that was still persecuting her. So this is why Joana de Angelis is saying, although yes, the unconsciously most of the time is related to the experiences that we have as spirits during our dream stage, it doesn't mean that we bring those experiences into, our conscious level, and the way we label them, that they represented exactly that. So there was not a Nazi. Maybe it was just her feeling, or talking to someone and explaining about all the things, but the way that she brought to her mind, symbolically speaking, is that there was someone persecuting me. And this someone, it's hard not to putting limits and not respecting what she has to do. So, and as Angelis also say, just to wrap it up, that for us not to think that all symbols are of spiritual origin as well. So in this case, it doesn't mean, like I said, there was a Nazi persecuting her, because in the real life of the spirit, but it's just a symbol representing also this pressure that we have that comes from our unconscious, from the unconscious level, with the sum total of what we are, and we are not paying attention. Sometimes, our self is telling our ego, calm down.
Yes. Yeah.
Pay attention to yourself, to the weaknesses of your bodies. You're not that young anymore. Your mind is not that sharp. But but we want to refuse from one way or another, because especially when we getting older, we start thinking, no, I'm still capable of doing everything. I'm still capable of working 12 hours, of doing this and that, and my mind is as sharp as it was before. No, we know that this is not what physical life represents. So this is what she says, for us to be very careful not to mix up this content, which means, which doesn't mean that we should not consider both aspects.
Yeah. Right. Can I say something here? Just, yeah. I want you to continue with that, Jussara. But what comes to my mind is the fact that there are three main causes for altered state of consciousness, right? Number one, everybody in the world will have, which is dreams. The dreams is an altered state of consciousness, and that's what we're talking here. On the other end is mediumistic trance is an altered state of consciousness. And we can talk about hypnotic, right? Using hypnosis, and many, for instance, psychiatrists are using hypnosis to bring about trauma or being able to discuss, say, phobias, etc., etc. But we talk about dream and the dream interpretation and the symbolisms that come through this altered state. And you alluded, Jussara, to another aspect of dream, which we discuss a lot in the spiritist environment or milieu, which is the sense of the encounter of spirits. I'd love to hear more from that. Of course. Yeah.
It is very complex, and we are not going to be talking about it now. Maybe we will have another episode to talk about it. But dreams, and even prophetic dreams, they are not of a mediumistic nature.
Okay.
They are of a psychic nature.
Okay.
Which is different. So when we are talking about dreams, in this sense, right, and when we have prophetic dreams, and when dreams that we are talking to spirit, it's of a psychic nature,
Okay.
meaning coming from the own soul,
Mhm.
and not as with an intermediary, right? Because then it would no longer be us or what I have in my conscience, but it would be somebody else. So
Mhm.
it's not in the mediumship field, but in the psychology.
Can you please define what do you mean by that for the audience that does not know what is a mediumistic exchange, Jussara? Just real quickly.
Sometimes, especially when we are talking about visions,
Hmm.
uh, it's very complicated because, let's see if I can make it clear.
Sure.
I may be watching Star Trek,
Hmm.
okay, on my cell phone, on my computer, or on a big screen, or on the TV. Okay, there are different means for me to see the same image.
Correct.
Okay, one of the means is going to be through the interference in a good sense, okay, of a 30 part, which is going to be a spirit.
Hmm.
So in this case, the spirit is bringing me, let's say, the image, the picture that is going to be, I will be receiving in my mind. It was not myself who went to a place and saw it. When I go to a place and see it, whether it be the past, the present, or the future, it's me with the possibilities of my spirit as anima, meaning soul, meaning psychic
Hmm.
abilities, accessing this information. So all the dreams, whether I'm having a dream. Um, Most of the times we are going to refer to prophetic dreams. It doesn't mean if it's going to be accomplished tomorrow or in 100 years, right? But it means I have access to that. Okay, I may have met spirits as well, but it's me, it's my anima, it's my soul, it's myself, and not with how we understand mediumship as being I'm just a messenger. Okay, the spirit is just is using us to bring, and we are relaying, reporting what we are seeing.
I can I take a stab at my own personal definition of medium?
That's one
Medium?
thing.
Yeah,
There
go
are
ahead. Yeah,
several cases of
yeah,
psychic
yeah.
abilities. That sometimes people, because they don't go into deep the studies, they consider to be mediumship. But here, when we say that, we are not saying that one is better than the other. We're
Sure.
just saying they are of different categories. Okay, so I'm not saying, oh, if you are a medium, it's better than me, a psychic. And actually, many mediums are psychics, and there are people that are only will have psychic abilities, like, for instance, healing, that can just be related to themselves and not with the participation or the co-participation of the spirit. So, in the field of dreams, we're not talking mediumship.
Okay. All right. So very good. So just to confirm, and I'd love to hear also Anahy talking about this because this is quite interesting, right? Subject. We could really dissect all the inputs into many different streams of conversation here. But for me, Jusada, the best way, this is an image that I come to mind. If we are to talk about mediumship, we are really almost like the medium is just a microphone, right? Relaying or amplifying or making it heard a message from a spiritual dimension into the material dimension. And you, Jusara, you corrected. So this is really good insight for all of us. During dreams, if you are bringing those prophetic or dreams from the past, this is really you accessing your own archives of memories that you have, present, past, or future, and you bring it through your own symbolism,
Like the
right?
out-of-body experiences, okay?
Hmm.
Some people call it astral travel as well. It,
Hmm.
it doesn't have, it's not mediumship.
Sure.
It is psychic, it is psychic ability.
Hmm. Anahy, do you want to add to this conversation? This is quite
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, quite interesting. And I was listening to you guys, and I remembered some Jung's dreams. Then I would love to hear
Yes, I love
Jussara
to
and
hear.
you talking a little about that. In his books, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he talks about, let's talk about especially one dream that he had with his deceased wife, Emma
Mhm.
Jung. Okay, I'll just tell quickly, and then probably I think it connects pretty well with what you guys were talking about visions and
Mhm.
about, of course, the difference between mediumship and but maybe we could call this spiritual meeting let's say in dreams, that it's everything is different, right, than the mediumistic, the medium in connection in an altered state of consciousness, connecting with the spirit in a awake, let's say, state of consciousness, but in dreams, right, and this encounter with the spirit. So Jung says that Emma Jung appeared to him in a dream as if in a vision. He uses this expression, as if in a vision. She had taken a position at some distance and was looking straight at me. This is what was a dream, okay?
Mhm.
She was in her prime, about 30 years old, and was wearing the dress that my cousin, the medium, and we know it was Hélène Preiswerk, the name of his cousin, had made for her, perhaps the most beautiful dress she had ever worn. A lot of symbolisms also. It's
Yeah.
so her face was neither happy nor sad, but expressed understanding and objective knowledge without the slightest sentimental reaction beyond the disturbance of the affections. I knew it wasn't her, Jung says, but an image composed or provoked by her in my intention. In that image was contained the beginning of our relationship, because she was young, the events of our 35 years of marriage, and also the end of her life.
Mm.
I think it's a beautiful dream and a very symbolic, because we know somebody that has read Memories, Dreams, Reflections, that Jung thesis for graduation in medical school was all written observing the sciences with
Mhm.
this cousin of his that was a medium, okay, and this cousin made this beautiful dress. So there are symbolisms in the memory of the dream, because Emma Jung was dead, but also the vision. And he had a certainty. Look at that, an image composed. He said, I knew it wasn't her, but an image composed or provoked by her in my intention. So I'm thinking of what Jussara said, that it wasn't probably um, the encounter. He was not remembering in the encounter of the spirit of Emma Jung in the dream, okay?
Mhm.
But of course, in a certain way, there was a meeting, because, as Jussara said, citing Joanna de Angelis, that everything, the life of the spirit for us here, happens in the unconscious mind, because our ego that it's representing the consciousness, our consciousness, cannot hold all this memory and all this knowledge of the spirit. We are spirits incarnated, so the soul is doing the job here, the psyche. So of course we can understand that Jung had an insight, an intuition that in a certain way it was a spiritual meeting. He met, let's say, his deceased wife, and she was younger, okay, and she had this dress that his medium, the cousin, made for her. And look what he describes her face, okay, not with the emotions that we live here in the personalities, right, with all the love, the anger, the sadness, the joy, but he describes her. Her face was neither happy nor sad, like a serenity, right? We could say, but expressing understanding and objective knowledge. When we talk about objective knowledge, we are talking about this clarity that only the spirit have, right? So I was thinking of this dream because a colleague of mine interpret this dream, Jussara and Marcia, as a mediumistic dream, because Emma Jung appears like a spiritual encounter, because Emma Jung appears in the dream
Mm-hmm.
like a young person, like when she was around 30, and with all this knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and without all this emotions that we experience. But I'm thinking here in Jussara that it sounds more like she, as a spirit, made this vision so that he could symbolically, we were talking about the language of the soul, understand that she was in another dimension of life, and she was in peace, and everything was okay between them. What do you think, Jussara? And I would love to hear Marcia.
Yes, and it's very interesting because we have this tendency, and you know better than us, of over-analyzing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's interesting when people come to us knowing that we are spiritists and we have, you know, those spiritual values, whether they believe in life after death or not, and the way they believe it. Uh, um, when we lose a loved one, we all long for their presence, and some way, at least in the back of our minds, we would like to have the certainty that somehow they go on. So people come and describe, like we have this dream of Jung here. Of course, it was not the case with him, you know, in the sense of, even though he was very spiritual and looked for many answers, he didn't have this kind of knowledge. So to him, of course, he's going to analyze from, you know, with this more scientific, his field point of view. And I mean, it's so interesting the way that he describes everything, the way she presented herself, which is really him putting symbols in what he was feeling when he saw her. And of course, from our perspective, in terms of spirituality, in terms of spiritism, this happens more often than we think. It's just that unfortunately we don't bring those memories of spiritual encounters, which is not
Correct.
mediumship,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual encounters, because it's not because I meet a spirit, oh, then it's mediumship. That's what we were talking about. When I meet a spirit, it's like phenomena. when I see a spirit because someone, let's say that I have problem seeing things, and I need glasses to see something. Okay, so the image is there. I'm here. The glasses is the spirit that is going to make possible for me to see something that is there. So this is the medium. The glass is the medium. Okay, so I mean, roughly trying to make it this complex topic a little more interesting, and to everyone. If I would be talking to a young today, referring to this dream, I would say, you know what? Don't overanalyze. You saw the spirit. This means this proves the immortality, and everything you felt and described it means that this spirit is a very good place, even by showing that is no longer succumbing to the unravel with a world of emotions. Because emotion in the sense of love, of peace, is very good, but what we have in terms of giving more to passion swings and completely imbalanced. So this is what I say when people come. What do you think it does? It means this dream, and I say, you know what, it doesn't matter what the dreams mean. What matters is that you saw your mom, you saw your father, you saw someone that you love it so much, and this person presented to you very lucid, very self-centered, in this sense. What more do you want, right? And yeah, so I think it's very important for us to think about it, and and paying attention, but at the same time, especially when we are talking about those spiritual encounters, what really happen is important. It's the spiritual encounter per se, and knowing that somehow, because of the moment we're going through, that person is there.
Very good. So I think we're at the end of our time. I think we could explore further the idea of those altered states and how we can interpret. And I love what you mentioned earlier, Anahy, in terms of the language of symbols is quite a complex one, because we have this universal language in those symbolism, but also our very personal, hence the allusion to my story about eating and translating what a mango meant to me, which is exactly not what it means to the 99.99% of the rest of humanity. So a good lesson for me. But I wanted to impart, and I'm going to be very silly here, just to bring light to the
Can
subject.
I just say
Yes,
something before
sure,
you go there?
sure, absolutely.
What is just food for our thought.
Yes.
And science does not explain, because why a mango tastes so good, and not so good to other people.
Yes.
Science cannot explain that.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Not,
Thank you.
not everything is about science.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
More
thank
things
you.
are about really savoring
Yes.
the moment, savoring the experiences.
And the emotional memory of eating the fruit that I used to eat when I was a kid. But I wanted to maybe close with the thought process that Sherlock Holmes fiction, we know, Dan Brown's Robert Langdon, who is completely fictional and made to sell his books, the angels and demons, the Da Vinci Code, etc., right? But what those two characters come to us in this discussion is the fact that, oh my goodness, they know they have that inherent superpower, if you will, of being able to look at something that is in the plain sight to all, but is hidden except for that person that knows how to interpret the language of symbols. So with that, I just wanted to say, let us all percolate a little bit, let us all think about, simmer, if you will, on this idea that our dreams is really a natural way to surface things that we need to tell ourselves, and somehow we don't have access to it. Anahy, do you have any final thought before we say goodbye?
Just hope that everybody are able to is able to learn their own personal language of their own souls, so that we can all really go to the next level of our souls, to evolve and to be happier, and to learn this lesson that many masters, spiritual masters, come to teach us, that love everybody, love ourselves, and integrate what, and learn how to integrate what we reject. I
Absolutely.
hope
Thank
that.
you. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Jussara, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to give a final plug to the fact that we spoke a lot about Joanna DeAngelis. We also talked about Freud and Jung, but Joanna DeAngelis, who is she? For those who do not know, she's a spiritual author that has worked diligently in collaboration with Divaldo Pereira Franco. And specifically, we're bringing her works here through this series of talks or discussions of psychology and spirituality in what we call the psychology series, or the psychological collection, where in those 16 books she brings many different concepts that are very important for all of us to access, to understand, and to grow with that. But with that, I want to say thank you so much for being with us, and I hope to see you next week. Bye, everyone.